Super Bowl 55, the commercials, and the halftime show next on the Neon Fish Podcast. Thank you once again for joining me on the Neon Fish Podcast. My name is Kevin Newsom, your host, and I have with me today my friend Cole, who has come here to talk with me about Super Bowl 55. We're going to talk about some of the commercials that stood out to us. We'll talk about the halftime show, and then we'll just talk a little bit about how churches should engage with Super Bowl Sunday. So, Cole, thank you so much for coming.
Oh, thank you for asking me.
And first of all, I just want to let y'all know, this is not a sports podcast. We are not going to analyze the game. We're not going to talk about any of those things, really. This is an arts and entertainment podcast. And so we're going to talk about all of this strictly from the arts and entertainment perspective. And once again, thank you for joining, whether you're on YouTube or on your podcast. We're certainly glad for you to be here. So, Super Bowl 55. First of all, before we get anything, I want to acknowledge the elephant in the room to all the artists and graphic designers out there. Yes, the logo for Super Bowl 55 was horrible.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
It looked like 54.
Yeah.
Because they put that trophy in the middle.
Yeah. Because I was very confused that they kept calling it 55, but then it was showing with the ivy.
Yeah, it looked like 54. So, we're not going to talk. I don't know who did the graphic design. We're not going to really talk about that. But I do want to acknowledge, because some of you may be graphic designers and artists. But yes, we know it was bad, and they should have put a little bit more thought into it.
I don't know. In hindsight, I think it might have been very appropriate.
A little conversation starter, right? Yeah. All right, so we're not going to talk about the game that much, but let's talk about the game and get it out of the way. Yeah. So the game in general, we were expecting this showdown between two tremendous quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes. We got
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady, that's the guy, yeah. And we were expecting this huge showdown, and we didn't get it.
Yeah, I'm not a football guy. This was the first football game I've watched all year. So coming into it from that standpoint, I think I was expecting to see two of the best going at it, and I feel like I saw one of the best going at it.
Well, and from an entertainment perspective, I really like a very quarterback-heavy, offense-heavy football game. It's fun to watch.
Yeah.
What we got was a very defense-heavy game.
Yeah, a lot of penalties.
Tom Brady didn't win the game.
No.
The Buccaneers' defense won the game.
You're right. There's a lot of truth in that.
What we saw was Tom Brady just another day at the office. Mm-hmm. We didn't see anything special. Mm-hmm. It was just another day at the office. We saw Patrick Mahomes running and on his back.
Yeah, pretty much.
And making some crazy throws. If you've never watched Patrick Mahomes,
right,
he can do some things that other people can't do. He was throwing things flying through the air and hitting his receivers between the eyes, and they couldn't catch it. But we didn't see him making the kinds of things we were expecting. So
yeah, I heard the analyst saying pretty frequently they were just seeing a lot of things you're not supposed to see at this level of the game. Like, you're in the Super Bowl, you should not be making the kind of mistakes you're making.
Right.
And that was the sense. I mean, in all honesty, there were times I just got bored and got up and did dishes.
Yeah, you win the penalty game, you win the game.
Right, yeah.
The team with the least amount of penalties is usually the winner. Yeah. All right, so we're going to move on. So there you go. Non-sports people, we have done our share of the sports stuff. We're not going to talk any more about it. So
there we go.
We've got commercials, and we've got the halftime show. What do you want to talk first?
We can go whatever you want there.
Let's talk commercials first. I don't know. Did anything stand out to you?
My general takeaway was that everything was just kind of underwhelming, I think you kind of come into the Super Bowl, especially in perspective of the commercials, just kind of expecting to be blown away. I mean, we know how much money's being thrown at those slots. That's usually a really big advertising time, and I just wasn't blown away. Nothing.
I got the impression that a lot of these companies spent most of their budget trying to get celebrities.
Oh, absolutely. There were a lot of big faces. They just weren't doing a whole lot.
They spent their budget on celebrities and not on a quality writer for the commercial.
Exactly.
So you got mediocre commercial with a bunch of big faces in it. The best commercials didn't have celebrities.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of some of the best commercials that you're probably going to come out of. Some of the best commercials were the ones that were sort of playing on the emotionalism coming out of 2020.
Yeah, definitely. That and in a very humanistic element, considering all the other elements from 2020 that were coming in to play as well. The
Jeep commercial stood out to me. Were you still watching when the Jeep commercial came on?
What was it?
It's about the little chapel in the middle of the United States.
No.
And how just this represents a way of we can come together and we can meet in the middle. To me, that was the standout.
Wow, I hate to miss that.
Compared to it's already being compared to the farmer commercial that was done a few years ago, narrated by oh no, I just forgot the guy's name. That's what happens when you get over 40, right? Anyway, most of you will know what I'm talking about. Paul Harvey. That is the guy, Paul Harvey. It was narrated by Paul Harvey, right?
Right.
The farmer commercial. So it's been compared to that already.
I gotcha. Wow.
What about the oat milk commercial?
Yeah, that was interesting. Even more so that it was the CEO playing a keyboard and kind of being a little goofy there.
Might be one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen.
Yeah, and with all the money and everything that went into the production of the Super Bowl, I was a little surprised at the very poor Lombardi CGI at the beginning.
The Lombardi CGI might have actually been better in person.
Yeah, maybe just didn't translate to television
well. Might not translated well.
Yeah.
Of course, the Bud Light commercials are always very entertaining.
Yeah.
Especially the one about the lemons.
Yeah. Well, I like that the guy from the Real Men of Genius songs was making a cameo in the one commercial, so that was awesome because those were always fun.
Right. So, but overall, just when it comes to the commercials. A lot of people watch the Super Bowl for the commercials, and they were probably as disappointed in the commercials as the sports people were in the game.
Yeah, it was pretty underwhelming across the board.
And then you've got your people who come to watch the big halftime show.
Right.
And again, underwhelming.
It was an interesting choice. And I had to do a little bit of homework after this because I was really confused why there were so many guys running around on the field with jock straps on their heads.
My wife and I compared it to the plague masks.
No, they definitely had a jock strap vibe, and I was like, I don't know the message there. But, kind of looking into it, I guess this is a thing The Weeknd has been doing for a while now. It's kind of his commentary on the way people will kind of mutilate their faces, trying to attain beauty, because in the video for his big hit, Blinding Lights, you see him getting beat up. And then that's when he began even appearing in public wearing these bandages at award shows and performances and stuff. And then he put out a follow-up video in January of 2021 this year where he has very exaggerated plastic surgery features. So I think he was trying to carry that theme into the show without donning it himself. But man, just as somebody who wasn't familiar with that story, it was just, I was like, okay, they just decided to put jock straps on all these dancers.
You think somebody would have said, hey, let's stop. Right. We're at a football game.
Right.
Okay? Maybe we shouldn't make this image at a football game.
Little
do you know what this looks like?
Right.
And nobody stopped it. So they went ahead and did it. Yeah. Just some other. They put the halftime show at the end of the stadium rather than in the center, and I think that might have been because of just the volunteers
Yeah.
that it would take to set it up. So they were obviously trying to maintain some sort of social distancing with all of his futuristic bionic choir.
Well, they had the
thing
jockstrap masks
going on.
covered for sure.
Yeah, they had their masks on, so we can at least give them that.
There we go.
Parts of it seem to have been deliberately designed with television in mind instead of being
Well, yeah, like
for
that
a
whole
live
maze
audience.
where he took us into the golden maze there. Definitely, because the audience couldn't have really been part of that other than on a screen somewhere.
I wasn't too familiar with the Weeknd's stuff. I only was familiar with 2 of his songs, so his music is not my musical scene.
Right.
So I haven't heard a lot of his stuff. I don't know how familiar you were with him.
Yeah, I'm familiar with him. Yeah, I thought that's why I thought it was a very interesting choice. But I know that right now, he's been kind of getting bigger and bigger coming out of 2020. So,
But I was very surprised that there were no other musicians.
yeah, I mean, what you saw. At one point, you saw a guitar player with looked like a glitter mask all over their face, but that was really the only other musician I saw.
But I'm talking about no names.
Right,
No
yeah.
more names that showed up.
Yeah.
Normally in the halftime show, you'd have 2 or 3 different groups that would make an appearance and do 1 or 2 songs. But it was just him.
Yeah.
It was just him.
This would have been the year for Left Shark to come back. So, from a few years ago, Left Shark, was it Katy Perry?
Oh.
The one shark that just fell out of sync with everything.
Oh, Katy Perry.
We needed Left Shark.
And I don't think we did. What do you think of the sound quality?
Of the halftime show?
Yes.
I actually, one of the things I appreciated about the halftime show was it was very obvious that he was actually singing. I know that those kind of productions and everything is typically pre-recorded, lip-synced. I mean, just from the logistical standpoint. But he was actually singing.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that it sounded terrible on the TV.
Yeah, especially at the beginning. At the beginning, you couldn't even hear him.
Right.
And he's like, his name has "the" in front of it. He's the one thing you should be hearing, right?
For a halftime show that was designed to be appealing to a TV audience, because the in-person audience was greatly diminished. For probably the highest rated single program in the entire year, year after year, with some of the highest budget that they could possibly get for 5 minutes worth of music, right? 10 minutes worth of music. They could have done better.
Oh, absolutely.
They could have had access to the best sound engineers and producers available, and probably had them.
Right.
What went wrong?
Right, and these are broadcast teams that should have been seasoned at this point. I mean, you don't bring an all new crew that's not done a production of this type before into an event so big.
Yeah, and the type of people, the type of know-how that within 30 seconds, minute and a half, would have already fixed the problem.
Absolutely, it took a while for them to get it leveled out. It took a very long, and I mean, it was my wife and I. I mean, we commented on that, like, you can't even hear.
It was almost as if they were miking the live speakers. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Rather than having a direct feed into the broadcast, they had mics that mic'd the live show, and those live mics were going to the broadcast. That's the vibe that I got.
Yeah, I totally get that. So, which may explain why it took them so long to kind of figure it out, because they could have just fixed it on a board. Music nerds here.
Yes.
This is
well, that's what this podcast is all
that's
about.
Right.
Cole.
I mean, you can get to the Axeman. You got guitars all over the place here.
It's arts and entertainment.
Right.
Arts, entertainment, and fandom and faith. That's what this podcast is all about. So yeah, overall, beginning to end, just kind of an underwhelming experience.
Yeah. Like I said, I admittedly, full disclosure, tapped out about halfway through. I hung in there through the weekend's performance, and then after that I said, I don't feel like there's anything left I need to see in this game, and just was content to watch highlights the rest of it. I felt like the game is pretty much over come halftime, and I know that, sometimes coming out of halftime, that other team, the team that's down, can just come back and just steamroll, but I just wasn't seeing it going into it, and So,
yeah, just very, very underwhelming. If y'all have any other opinions, leave a comment in YouTube or, I guess you can't comment on podcasts, but hey, jump on YouTube, find the video, and leave me a comment if you have any disagreement. So, Cole, churches and Christianity, evangelicalism, whatever you want to put it, have a love-hate relationship with the Super Bowl.
yes.
The pandemic sort of kind of it kind of skirted and unnoticed this year because so many churches are not having, if they're having anything, they're certainly not having their Sunday night stuff. Very sparsely. There's not a lot of activity going on church on Sunday evenings, and so the Super Bowl is sort of just kind of passed without much notice. But some churches will use it as an evangelism tool to invite the community in, and they'll preach at halftime. Some churches will cancel their service because half their people are going to go stay home and watch it anyway. Because let's face it, a lot of people want to watch it. And then you got some churches that just say, "Well, we're not going to do anything. We're just going to keep going and pretend there isn't a game."
Right.
What do you think? How should we approach this sort of thing? So next year, when hopefully we're back to normal, the question is going to come up: do we cancel? Do we use it? Or do we just plow through as if it's not even happening?
I think ignoring it's the wrong answer for sure. I'm not saying that churches should rearrange their whole schedule around a non-church event like that. I mean, it's a sports game. We all, anybody who's a college football fan, we're all familiar with rivalries there, and we certainly don't make any arrangements to accommodate those. I mean, typically those fall on non-Sundays, but at the same time, I believe there's opportunity there. What that looks like, I don't really know, because I feel like some of the elements that are parts of these productions, they leave a lot of opportunities that are going to require explanation. I think for me,
because you have a younger audience,
right? Well, that's for me a barometer of what I should and should not be watching in my home. Is always, is this going to create an uncomfortable situation that I'm going to have to explain to the kids?
Right.
And I feel like with
and what we did not get last night was the J-Lo Shakira experience.
Oh, right,
type of thing
yeah.
that a lot of parents are a little cringy about letting their kids watch, and of course people think back to the incident.
Right.
The incident.
Right. The malfunction.
the wardrobe malfunction. Right. But we didn't get that with the weekend. Right. It was safe.
It was safe. Now, the content of his music, if you had your captions on, the kids were paying attention, maybe you'd have to explain some stuff. But
you couldn't hear him singing anyway. So.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Like, as long as your captions were off, you were in pretty good shape. But no, I don't know what that answer looks like. I don't know what I feel like the right thing would be. I do know that pretending it's not out there isn't a good example. I think where Christians benefit most from watching something like the Super Bowl is, I feel like it really gives us a gauge of how the other half think, as I've heard it put before. Watching the commercials, all the humanistic elements that were coming in, the stories about people and people's stories, and there's a narrative that was there, and I sometimes wonder if is that a narrative that people believe, or is it a narrative we're being told and they're wanting people to get on board with? I don't really know, but there's a lot of sermon room that can come out of that, but it can't happen unless really.
And honestly, the narrative, I'm going to put a name to it, because we've actually had discussions about this over the past few days. I mean, recently here in the offices amongst the other pastors here, and it's a postmodern right to self-identity.
Absolutely.
And so, in postmodernism, we think of a lot of the churches are dealing with moral relativism and and what is truth and absolute truths and the relative truths that of postmodernism that we're trying to teach our people not to buy into and to stand for absolute truth. But that's only one side of postmodernism.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's another side of postmodernism that we're kind of neglecting, and it's starting to come to light. We're starting to see more people are writing about it, more people are talking about it because the narrative is there, and that's the exact narrative you're talking about. It's the right to self-identity.
Right.
It's this idea that we can determine for ourselves what kind of identity we want and what kind of things we identify with.
Right.
And so this narrative that you're seeing through all of these things is be who you want to be. Become the greatest potential of who you were meant to be.
Right.
Find the identity that you want to have. Is basically what they're saying. So that's what it is, and we're starting to see a whole lot more of that coming to light. It's interesting you brought that up, because we've had a lot of discussions just in the past few days about the same thing.
Well, and I think kind of piggybacking on that, I think that's an American cultural thing. Kind of going back to the weekend, the weekend has always seemed a little bit different outside of American ideology because he's Canadian, and we see a lot of different thinking coming out of Canada. They may have already gone down this path a long time ago.
Yeah, they're a little bit ahead of us.
Right. But there's there's a certain element to the production of his content that is vastly different from American culture in that there's not a lot of meanness to it. There is, but there isn't. It's hard to write from your own perspective without talking about yourself, but
Right.
But no, this I was seeing it a lot in the pre-show, the pre-kickoff pre-show, the all the various show elements, the pre-halftime reports, but yeah, that narrative is really sticking out, and I saw it very consistent across. The Super Bowl production itself, the commercial content, it was pretty noticeable. And I don't know if that's an our camp kind of thing, but
well, it's a little of both. We have to learn to deal with it and how to talk about it and how to teach our people to address it, not just from a perspective of how are we going to sort of correct. Our own people, correct our own theologies, our own thinking to move away from some of that.
right,
But to also to know how to engage people who are entrenched in some of this self-identity issues. I think it's going to be a really important issue for the church moving forward. As far as the Super Bowl, how it relates to the Super Bowl, well, the Super Bowl gives us a talking point.
Absolutely.
The commercials gives us a talking point.
Right, and they're all trying to say, here's where you can find your hope, and well, we have that answer, and we've got the market cornered there.
we can push to them. Well, did you see this commercial? Well, what did you think about this? Well, have you ever thought about Jesus in this capacity?
Right,
a really good way to get into a conversation. As far as the church as a whole, I don't see that. It's healthy to bring that kind of secular content into what is largely a sacred type space, a protected space. But using it maybe for block parties, home parties, or things like that as an evangelistic tool. I think it's something that is worth exploring. So.
Yeah, I think kind of piggybacking off what you said, bringing it into the church almost implies that this is a
sanction.
It's a sanctioned but also culturally significant event that we need to make sure. I think the primary area is, we don't want to ignore the fact that our memberships are out there consuming this content.
They are.
And just doing our part to make sure that they're disseminating that and understanding,
Right.
I get truth from error. I guess would be the right way to put it. And it's hard to do that without bringing the content in somewhat. But as far as an evangelistic opportunity, absolutely. But I don't know. Having beer commercials played during a church event is a little weird for me.
A little hard to explain, right?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So those of you who watched it, we're gonna wrap it up right there. Those of you who watched it, we're gonna encourage you to go on YouTube and rewatch some of these commercials that we were talking about, and use them as conversation starters in your workplaces with your families, and find ways to really talk about what does it mean to put the focus on yourself versus what does it mean to find yourself through Christ. I think it'd be a good way to start conversation. So thank you so much, Cole.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching on YouTube. Thank you for listening on your favorite podcast app. And we'll see you next time on the Neon Fish Podcast.